Okay, so my name's Zane. I've been teaching ArchiCAD since 1998. So now there has been a couple of years, like recently, that I haven't really been using ArchiCAD a lot. So you might find me going, "Oh, where the hell's that button?" I apologise for that. And today, what we're going to try to do is teach you how to use ArchiCAD in the space of about 1 hour, which is pretty ambitious. Now, this means that you're not going to get the most in-depth, and we're going to make some sort of cheeky shortcuts so that we can achieve what you guys need for this project. And I'm more than happy to sort of help you out or point you in the right direction to get more assistance with ArchiCAD. So yeah, I apologise for the compactness of this, but it'll be a really good start, not just for this project, but for using ArchiCAD in the future. If you've used other CAD programs, one thing I always tell people is don't be afraid to jump ship. This is going to happen multiple times through your career. There's going to be some new fandangle CAD program come out in a few years' time that we don't even know about yet, that everybody's using, and you'll have to change. You go into a Revit company one day, and then maybe you end up with another job and using, I don't know, SketchUp or something hideous. So don't be afraid. Once you've learnt one CAD program though, it's not that difficult to jump ship. You're going to kick and scream and go, I really want this thing, but hey, what's this new thing? So it's not the end of the world, is what I'm saying, basically. Learn as many as you can. Alright, so first thing, I'm going to find ArchiCAD. So I believe you guys have got ArchiCAD 22 on there. Now, if you want ArchiCAD at home, I think if you go to myarchicad.com, you can sign up with your university account and get a free copy. I think it lasts a year. Each year you have to renew it, which was convenient because mine only ran out just the other day, and I thought, oh, I better just open up ArchiCAD just to check to make sure everything's all good, and it told me that I needed to renew my license, which I'm really glad I did that, because otherwise, yeah, I wouldn't be using my laptop right now. Okay, so we're just going to go and create a new project. Have we all found ArchiCAD? Cool, I'll take that as a yes. All right. Now, ArchiCAD is a BIM. So the big difference now, some of you might be going, oh, I like to use Rhino. Rhino is a freeform modeler, totally different way of working. And a lot of the stuff that you're going to see in CAD software, like pure CAD software, has come from a totally different world. It's come from a drawing board. And so there's all sorts of little things that it's inherited along the way. Freeform modeling software, so like Rhino, has come from a totally different place as well, from basically computer programmed images. And so all sorts of funny little things will crop up, things like X and Y and Z being in different orientations, because in our world we always think of Y as up, and Z as depth, and X is the sideways. It's about the only one they agree on. Whereas when you're drawing a picture on a piece of paper, you think of X and Y flat on the paper, so Z is up as your elevation. So you're going to find little funny things like that. So there is a lot of history, and I could go on for probably at least this hour just talking about the history of CAD, but we haven't got time for that. So the idea of BIM as versus like sort of something like AutoCAD, BIM is an information model, okay, so a building information model. And so there's all of this extra data attached to it. So it's not like Illustrator where you draw a line and it's, well, I suppose it's got a little bit of information, what color and how thick, that's about it. And here when we draw a line, that could be the edge of a slab, it could be a wall, it could be a line of trees, who knows. There's all sorts of things that this can be. So you'll find that all of the tools in here all have lots of information attached to them. Okay, so it's not just a straight line or a square. If you're going to draw something in AutoCAD, you have to draw like 4 lines to make a wall. This sort of carry on. It's not like that at all. So Revit and ArchiCAD, obviously, the two big ones. There's also MicroStation, but that's another conversation. So ArchiCAD and Revit basically achieving the same thing in different sort of ways. On the left-hand side here, you'll see we've got a whole bunch of tools. So the first ones here you'll use quite a lot. These are the design tools. There's walls and slabs, roofs, and all that sort of stuff. Now, just because it says it's a roof doesn't mean it can't be a wheelchair ramp. Okay, so these things, just because they're called a wall tool, doesn't have to be an actual wall. There's also Windows. Now, things like Windows, this is a very intelligent bit of software, so we don't have to make a hole in our wall and then fit a window to it. When we go and fit the window, it creates the hole in the wall for us. So they all interact nicely with each other. They all have their own settings, and we'll see that. Actually, I'm just going to close these because you probably don't see those at the moment. So all of these are our tools. Okay, some of these are two-dimensional tools. So all these document tools down here. If this is collapsed, there's a little triangle that you just click on to make them expand. And then down the bottom there, we've just got some extra little bits and pieces. Now, ArchiCAD's incredibly customizable. So you might go into a design studio and they've got, it looks totally different because the CAD technician has arranged everything that suits their workflows. So you can totally customize this and rearrange windows and manage it all. Again, we haven't really got time to go into that, but it is possible. You can export those settings and import them and stuff. So if you've got a particular way of working, yeah, you can totally customize the software to work like that. But we're going to be using this default setup, all our icons down the left-hand side. Now, every time you change to a different thing, you'll notice that this bar across here changes. Okay, so those are all of the basic settings. But it's not all of the settings. It's just some really handy ones that you'll tend to use on a regular basis. Up the very, very top up here, you'll see there's a whole bunch of other little tools, things like measuring tools and trims, well, yeah, so we can like trim walls to a line or something like that. There's all sorts of crazy stuff up there as well. And on the right-hand side is basically how we organize all of our documents. Oh, sorry, that one shouldn't be there either. So I'm going to talk very briefly about this, but if you want to use ArchiCAD to actually design buildings and plans and all that sort of carry on, you can use it a lot. This is totally misunderstood by a lot of people who use ArchiCAD, and when I show that to them, it blows their mind. Just so that you know, this here, that first little icon, that is where all of your data is stored. So if you delete something out of here, if I delete the ground floor, my ground floor is history, it's gone, and I'm never getting it back again. The next tab is saved views. That's where I can have loads of different views of my floor plan. Some might have dimensions in it. Maybe it's got US dimensions, and I've got another layout that has other types of dimensions. It could have layers switched on and off. This is how we basically organize it. If I delete any of this, it doesn't delete any of my data. It just deletes the view of my data. Then we've got layouts. And the last one is the publisher. So the layouts are actual, like, you know, here's a piece of A1, I want this drawing here, and this drawing here, and this drawing here, and here's my title block. And the publisher exports all that. So it can even create web pages and all sorts of crazy stuff. So you can actually export like a little web page that your client can go in there and go, I don't like that, and put a little circle around it, you know. So it's, yeah, and we can automate a huge amount of work. And yes, okay, so data lives in that first one. I'm not going back there again, but it is important to know. Now, on top of all this, and I kind of mentioned it a couple of times, you've also got layers. So not really the same as Photoshop layers. Photoshop layers are like layers of acetate, you know, and the destructive, you go and draw a square over a circle on the same layer, you've destroyed pixels, right? This is a little bit different. The layers can have lots of different objects, and they can even be stacked on top of each other within each of those layers. So they're not really like layers of acetate, they're just groupings of things. And if you go Command L or Control L, that'll bring up your layers. Okay, again, we haven't got a huge amount of time to go into this, but you can see there's a whole bunch of default ones already there. Yeah, the naming of them is kind of logical, but there's a lot of assumptions, okay, that, you know, your walls that you're drawing are all exterior walls. So if you want to do interior walls, you should change the layer so you can switch them on and off. On the left-hand side, we can save combinations of those layers. So, again, they're just saved combinations. So you can create a, you know, draft version of it, and it's got the walls and the slab and the terrain model switched on, but everything else is switched off. You know, and so they're just quick ways of managing your document. Okay, that's enough of that. Let's draw something. Now, as I said, so I'm going to start with the wall tool, right? So that's that very top left-hand icon. It looks a bit like a wall. Now, actually, I will get you to turn two palettes on that are incredibly handy. If you go up to Window Palettes, there's two that are very, very convenient. There's the control box. So if I click that on, that appears. and there is the window palettes coordinates box. That is also really handy. It's got some really handy things in there that we will probably use. Why they're switched off by default, I don't know, because it is incredibly handy. Oh, sorry, this is, I'm just going to put that back to what it is by default. Right, now we're going to draw a wall. Now, I'm going to do this quite simply to start off with. You'll notice, actually, sorry, I've got a few things that aren't on the defaults. I've taught this enough times to actually know what the defaults are. So by default, it's on a little box here, and when we go and draw this, it draws all four walls all in one go. Now, CAD software, and I think pretty much all CAD software, is a little bit different to programs like Photoshop. It's all single clicks. So you define the start point and you define the end point. There's no clicking and dragging. That's for RSI reasons. CAD people are very onto RSI. You're going to spend literally hours and hours and hours using this. You've got to take RSI. I usually have a big spiel about RSI, but take regular breaks and learn your keyboard shortcuts. I'm going to boil it right down to. Keyboard shortcuts make you you kind of distribute the load, so you're doing things a lot quicker, and your friends will think you're like a CAD ninja, because you'll be like, brrr, and things will happen, and they'll be like, what the hell, man, that's insane. So learn your keyboard shortcuts. Okay, so single click the top left corner, single click the bottom right corner, and we've created a box. Okay. Now, my computer has a very convenient little feature, because it's got like this little bar that little graphical icons come up. You don't have that. So what you're going to have to do, if you hold down the function key, actually, does the PC default to the function keys just being function keys? I think so, eh? So if you press F3, do you get a 3D window? Yes. Okay, cool. Okay, so I don't have to tell you to hold down the function key. So this is our 3D view. Okay, so we've got a 2D view and a 3D view. You can design in the 3D world, which, yeah, that's cool. But the designing in the 2D one is a lot more convenient. It's working in plan view. So you can see we can flip between this 2D view and the 3D view. So just going F2 will take you back to 2D. Cool, there's my 2D view. And I'm going to F3 and go 3D view. Now, we didn't really set anything up, right? So you can actually see that it's come out, I think, the 2.7 meter high walls and all sorts of different things. 2.45 meter high walls, or 2,450. You can change units, we're not going there. All right, let's just bring up the settings. Now, the keyboard shortcut for settings is Control-T or Command-T. And the good way to remember that is, I'm going to select one of my walls, right? And I'm going to change the settings. If you go Control-T, it's for your settings. That way you'll remember that it's Control-T. Oh, that didn't come up. Oh, sorry, Command-T for me. All right, so this is all of the settings for the wall that I have selected. If you have nothing selected and you go to the wall tool and you go Control-T or Command-T, that will be the default from that point onwards. So it's a really good idea to think, okay, I'm going to draw a whole bunch of walls. I'm going to set it up first. Now, because your first kind of instinct is to start drawing walls, and then all of a sudden you've got all these walls at the wrong height, wrong thickness, wrong color, and you've got to go around selecting them all, and then you realize later, oh shit, I should have put them on a different layer, etc., etc. So we're not going to be too worried about layers at this stage, because we're doing a very simple project. But if we go in here, there's a couple of things that you do need to know. One is a relatively new thing. That very top, links. Now, we've actually got stories in here, so normally ArchiCAD works with multiple stories, which makes a lot of sense, okay? So we can go up a story, and there's a whole bunch of tools so you can see what's downstairs, so you can like snap to things and all that sort of carry on. We're not going to go there, okay? That's actually what we see over here on the side here. It's got like sea level, ground floor, roof, okay? So we can work at these multiple datums. So you don't want to have to go and put a chair on the second floor and go, oh, hang on, that's 3,200 above my, you don't want to work like that. You're 0 on the second floor, okay? So by default, our wall is linked to our roof height. So if I lift the roof, the walls get higher. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. For us, we don't care because we just want to make walls at whatever heights we want. So I'm just going to change that to not linked. So now I can change the height of the walls. This is relatively new, so it caught me out when I noticed. It was like, what the hell? How come I can't change the height of my wall? Very cool feature, but not what I want right now. Over here, we've also got 3 different ways of making a wall. This one here is very simple. It's just a wall. It's just like a, like a box. The next one is a composite wall. Very handy if you're drawing up plans for a house, because you can have like weatherboards and then some building paper and then the timber structure and then some, with insulation in it, and then the jib and then the paint, and it does it all in one foul swoop. So you don't have to draw all these things separately. But we just want a simple wall. Oh, the last one is a complex profile. So you can have like curved walls or walls that have like bases to them and they can stretch in all sorts of different ways. If we had like 12 weeks, I could teach you all this stuff. We just want really simple walls, okay? You can choose the material if you want. It's not really going to make much difference to us though. There's also other sort of weird and wonderful things you can do down here, but we're going to keep all those as default. This is the thickness of our wall. Now, you guys are going to be making kind of like these structures that you're going to build, right? So this thickness will, for you guys, probably only be like how deep the windows go into your model. So what we're going to try and achieve is to be able to build these like really simple structures that have holes where the windows are, instead of actual windows with like handles and all the rest of it and panes of glass in it. They're just going to be empty openings. So the thickness of our wall is going to dictate how deep those windows go into your model. You don't want to go too deep because otherwise it's going to be quite difficult to separate the mold from the castings. So that's how you can control that. I'm going to leave it at 100. So that's we're working at 1:1 here. Obviously we'll scale it down later on, but that's so at the moment it's 100 mil thick. And we'll talk about reference lines in a second. Okay. There's loads and loads and loads of other stuff here, and when you've got time, by all means, have a look through it. Okay, so I'm going to show you something really cool. I'm just going to change something. So I'm going to make this wall, we're going to make it really big, okay? Because I'm going to show you how to, this isn't really how you should use ArchiCAD, but we're just going to like treat this as really simple, big slab buildings, okay? They're just, they're not going to have chairs on the second floor. I'm going to make this wall 10 meters high. So I'm going to go 10,000. Cool, hit return. That's the elevation off the ground. You'll notice that some things work a little bit different. So like walls always start 0 as the bottom of the wall and they go up to the height. So when you do the height, the top of it's moving. Whereas you'll find that concrete slabs work the other way around. 0 is the top surface of that slab and they go down. So if you go 300, they'll go down 300, okay? That all kind of makes sense if you're an architect. Okay, and if we go to the 3D view now, you'll see that one of my walls, because I only had one of them selected, has ended up huge and the others haven't. They've also got a whole bunch of other settings, because all those original settings are still in the old wall. I'm going to show you a really cool thing that is one of my favorite things in ArchiCAD, is the eyedropper. Now, the eyedropper is actually up here. There's an eyedropper and there's a little syringe. So that means I can pull the settings out of something. Cool. And then I can inject them into other things. So I can inject it into that. And inject it into that, etc., etc. Now, there's actually a keyboard shortcut. Set. It doesn't work for me because... option. Okay, that's it. So I think on yours it will be Alt will turn the cursor into an eyedropper. Is that right? See, does your cursor turn into this funny little eyedropper? You hold down the Alt key, like doing nothing else, just touching the Alt key. And then if you go Alt Control, it should turn into a syringe. Oh, maybe I've... Yeah. Okay, so this is really handy because if it's like, you go and put this chair down, and you go, oh, I love that chair. I want all the other chairs to be the same. You can suck the settings out of it and then inject it into all your other chairs. Okay? So it's a really, really handy one. But I'm going to show you some really handy things. But that's the eyedropper. So Alt and Alt Control or Alt Command. Cool. And if I go to my 3D view now, you'll see that all of my walls have extended to the top. Okay, because they've all got the same settings. All right. How are we doing? We all comfortable? Excellent. Sorry if I talk too fast. Now, remember before, this is kind of a little bit inconvenient because when I select these walls, I only select the one wall, but I actually draw all those walls in one fell swoop. There's actually a setting, for some reason it's off by default, I don't know why. And this is why I got you to pull up this control box. There's a little thing there that has enable and suspend groupings. So if you turn that to this mode, you'll notice that when you go and select these walls now, it selects all of them. And if you look closely, you'll notice that the little nodes on that wall are hollow. Okay? That means if they're hollow nodes, that means they're part of a group. If they're a solid node, they're just a single item. So if you see something that's got those little hollow nodes, and you'll see this when you go and draw like really complex, like curvy walls, the last thing you want to have to do, especially if it's going through the middle of everything, sometimes it can be incredibly difficult to select. If it's got those little hollow things, you go, oh cool, I can select all those. But sometimes you want to deal with just one of those segments. So in this case, if we wanted to change just one of these walls, we can suspend our groups and select that single wall. Okay, and I can make that shorter or higher or pink or blue or whatever. Okay, make it thicker, drop it down, who knows what. Okay, so you don't have to ungroup and regroup, you can just suspend those groups. So that little thing is incredibly handy. Okay. The last thing I actually want to say about walls. So you'll notice that we kind of saw most of these settings inside here. It's the only one that you really see that's missing is actually the different types of ways of drawing walls. So if you click and hold on that, you'll see that you've got a single line. So that's, I want a wall to start here and finish there. The next one, you can do kind of a whole bunch of walls like this. Cool. If you want to put in a particular distance, if you press D, the distance highlights, and you can say, 3,500. And you can even do the angle. So the quick way is just hit tab and it will go to the tab, it'll tab over to the next value and you can say 45 and hit return and there you go, 3.5 meters at 45 degrees. Cool. This kind of wall just keeps going, so I could just sit there and type in values. So if you've got a whole bunch of measurements, you can just sit there and type them all in. Be very careful. Unfortunately, I haven't got time to teach you really good ways of taking survey data and putting it in here. Be very careful if you've got measurements that are one after another, because you start compounding all of your errors. So if you've got to measure a building and it goes there, then there, then there, then there, then there, then there, and you type them in like that, every little error ends up pushing everything else out. If I had time, I'd show you a really cool way of doing these, but I don't. When you're finished, you can just hit escape, and it should. Oh, shiza, don't hit escape. Sorry, I said you're wrong. You press return. No, there's a little tick somewhere. Oh, that's right. That's another good thing with the control box. Oh, that's right. I think if you click the last point again, that's right. Sorry. I told you I was a little bit rusty. If you click the last point again, it will finish drawing that line. Or you can go to the control box and hit OK. Okay, so you can go OK, and it'll finish it that way as well. Notice that if you're in the middle of doing something, you can actually still click on things and control stuff and do things, even though I'm in the middle of drawing something. So if you need to go to the zoom tool, even though you're in the middle of drawing something, like, oh shit, I need to move the screen, you can still do that. Okay, there's like a little hand tool down here somewhere. Where is he? I don't even know. Probably because I don't ever use it. It used to be down there. I can fit everything to view. I can scroll around, zoom in, zoom out. Oh shit, I've zoomed in too much. So you can still use all of these things while you're still drawing. Of course, it's going to snap to things as well. Okay, if you want to finish, you can either click that last point. Notice the pencil, the cursor, if they call it a smart cursor, you'll notice that it does different things. If you're over the top of the node, it turns dark black. If you're over a line, you'll see it gets a little line in the middle of that pencil. Okay, if you're not snapping to anything, it's completely see-through. Okay, those snaps will come back to haunt you if you do them wrong. If the things don't snap together, all of a sudden you've got walls that don't join, and things can be very painful. So we've probably now got a whole bunch of crazy stuff going on. All right, I'm just going to go undo a bunch of times until I get rid of all that. Looks like I haven't put the settings into this wall. There we go. Cool. Now there's also, you can draw circular walls. You can draw all sorts of weirdly shaped walls that start off thin and end up thinner, whatever. You can draw walls that have completely strange shapes. I don't know why this isn't called a slab, but I don't know if I've ever actually used that kind of wall. Maybe. Yeah. Anyway, and now there's a last thing I want you to look at. This doesn't work for that last setting. If you're drawing a straight wall, right? So let's say we're just going to do a straight wall. Now you've got to be very careful because we're drawing a vector, but our wall has thickness to it. So if we go and draw the inside of the room, but we'd actually measured the outside of the building, there's going to be a discrepancy. Okay? If I wanted to split a room in half, I'm going to have to make sure that my wall goes on either side of the line that I draw, because otherwise I'm going to make one room smaller than the other. Does that make sense? So that's what this does. Okay, so when you click on that, you'll see it says outside face, center, and inside face. So if I want to split this building in half, I'd have to go to that center line, and if I hover over here, by default, notice see this little thing up here in the control box, it says half, so it's going to give me a little tick mark on the half. And so now when I go and draw that, whoops, remember I can change it even though I'm started drawing. That's all cool. Cool. Now notice as well, see I'm getting like a little 90-degree angle, but I actually want to snap because it's going to snap to the halfway mark. So now those two rooms are of equal size. If I hadn't have changed it, the room on the left would be larger than the room on the right. So you really need to think about that when you're going, especially if you measure the outside of the building, make sure that your walls are appearing on the inside of the lines that you're drawing. Cool? There are tools in there to switch the direction if you screwed it up. So if one room was meant to be bigger than the other, somewhere in there you'll see modify wall or something, I think it is. I can't remember, but it's in there somewhere. There it is. So it's under Edit, Reference Line and Plane. You can modify invert wall direction and all sorts of stuff. So you can. There are tools for that. That's the sort of tool you'll be looking for if you suddenly realize that all of your walls are on the outside when you should have been on the inside. Oh, crap. You also got to be careful because, of course, you draw a line in one direction. If you go and draw it in the other direction, it can end up on the wrong side. Okay. We all happy with drawing walls?
It becomes really obvious when you've got something like weatherboarding on one side of the wall and you finish drawing the room and then you realise there's weatherboards on the inside of the room.
Yeah, well, it switches because you've got because it is clever enough that it'll sometimes snap. So it might appear fine in plan, but one's that side and one's the other. So sometimes you got to switch the reference line so that it ends up on the inside, but the wall doesn't shift. So there's all sorts of little gotchas. It beats the hell out of drawing 4 lines though to create one wall. So yeah. All right. I'm not going to delete that because we don't need it. Let's build a roof. Now the roof has got a really, there's a couple of ways of doing this. I can sit here and draw a roof like that. Cool, and it magically does it. Or I can use what's called the magic wand. The magic wand is frigging awesome. All you have to do is hold down the spacebar and your cursor turns into a magic wand. It's a hell of a lot more magic than Photoshop's magic wand because this will actually follow a shape. So I can build a house in about 10 minutes just basically doing an outline and then magic wanding slabs and walls and roofs and all sorts of crazy stuff. Now, again, in this case, I want the reference line, in my case, to be on the outside of the walls. That's because I'm going to change it so we don't have any overhangs. Okay, so really handy. It will do crazy stuff. If I go a magic wand inside a shape, I'm going to end up with a roof inside a roof, which makes no sense. And if I have a look at that in 3D, it's going to just look weird and wacky. Oh, whoopsies. Yeah. I have no idea what's going on there, but it's not good. Okay, so the magic wand will either follow a line, and you'll notice that the cursor changes shape. Oops, I'm going to delete that. Okay, so if I go to the roof tool, okay, you can kind of see that it's kind of like there, it's like a circle, and if I go in there, it's like polygonal. So it can search for the area around it, or it can follow a line. And that line could even go across other lines and do all sorts of crazy stuff. It will just follow that line that you drew. And you can create impossible roofs that a builder will not want to build. So don't get too carried away. You can also later on get it to create all the timber framing for you. Good luck, because you can make some really frigging crazy roofs and some really frigging crazy, support structures that fit inside it. And it might have taken you 5 minutes, but it's going to cost an absolute fortune to build, and you won't make any friends. And saying that though, I think some buildings probably could get a bit more crazy these days. Anyway, so there's our roof. Now, actually, I should have specified the height, which I didn't. So I'm going to select it. Now, how long? I think we made our walls were 10 meters high. Now, I believe this, so if we go to its settings, it's actually being attached to the roof, which again, if we were using ArchiCAD correctly and doing all these things on different layers, that would make complete sense. But you guys might end up with lots of buildings with lots of roofs at different heights and things like that, so it's not going to make much sense at this stage. So we're trying to keep everything simple. So we're just going to say that it's relative to the ground floor, and we're going to say 10 meters. Is it 10? Yeah. Cool. And so that should be sitting on top of my walls. Awesome. Now, because this project, you're trying to cast this, having overhangs on this roof is not a good idea because you won't be able to cast it. Yeah, you won't be able to pull it out of the mold.
If we were doing it as facades and a roof element. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe do it as a separate piece altogether.
Probably has to be because the sides would come off and then the roof would come off.
Yeah. So you got lots of challenges. Okay, so let's say you don't want, maybe you figured out a way of doing it. There's lots of other things you'd probably have to do because we'd also have to stick like a slab under there as what do you call what's the boards called that go underneath the roof? Architrave? Barge board. No, the barge board's that bit. And then there's that bit. Come on, architects. What's that bit called?
Which one is it?
Well, because you got the roof, right? And then you have the barge board, and then it goes flat to the wall.
Oh, yeah.
That bit, you might have to draw those anyway, so because otherwise, if you notice, if you ever look underneath here, it's going to go up in an angle, which is pretty weird. That'll come back to me in a second. I've had to paint, actually I haven't even painted all of mine in the back of the house, they're not painted. Nobody's noticed. Anyway. Okay, so if we want to get rid of that or we want to make them longer or whatever, if you select your roof, I'm going to do this from the 2D view just because it's easier. You can see over here we've got a overhang. Where is it? Thickness. Oh, offset, that's right. If I change that to 0, it fits perfectly on top of my walls. Okay, if I set it to 3000, I've got some crazy great big overhang. The number one thing I find with people dealing with roofs is they try to do things that you just can't physically do, like with the way that the angles all work.
Sorry, where was the overhang bit?
It's called offset.
Offset.
And it's right at the end there, or if you go into the settings, it's somewhere in there somewhere. Oh, there it is, offset. So yeah, that's a quick, easy way of adjusting it. Yeah, later on, once you become a ArchiCAD ninja, you can have like actual corrugated iron and guttering and all that sort of stuff, and it all attaches to that roof. So if you go and change what that offset is, everything else all moves intelligently with it. It's really friggin' cool. I'd love to show you all this stuff, but yeah, we're 40 minutes in though. We're doing pretty good. Yeah. You can already build like a kit set type, Keith Hay home type thing. We just need to put windows in it. So that's our next little mission. Now, we're going to cheat here, okay, because instead of building lots of floors, as I was saying before, what we're going to do is we're going to put windows down the bottom, and then I'm going to elevate them, and in the process you're going to learn a whole bunch of other really cool tools. Whew. Sorry, my knees just decided to scream at me. All right. Now, we're going to bring up in the settings for the windows. This is like going shopping, and these windows are amazingly detailed. You can choose different types of layouts, and I mean, it's not just like that window there can look really, crazy and different. And there's lots of different sort of settings in here that we can go through, and you'll see there's different sashes and sill widths, and whether or not you've got grids in there, and you make custom one. It's nuts. I could spend easily half an hour just talking about one of these library parts. You can even go further with this. These CAD image tools. You just have some really cool like window tools. You can make some crazy custom windows up, which if you ever have to deal with old buildings, they generally don't just use some sort of aluminium frame window. They usually got all sorts of crazy things going on with like louvers and all sorts of stuff with arches and brick outlaying. You can so yeah, there's an amazing amount of tools. However, we're not going to use any of that. We're going to use this little button right at the bottom that says empty opening. Incredibly boring, I'm sorry. There is a couple of little things you can do with your empty opening still, but it's pretty boring, sorry. Yeah. Is there anything in there that's of any use to us? I don't think so. But yeah, so that's our empty openings anyway. We can obviously set the size, so the width, the height, the distance from the top to story 1, etc., etc. The reveal to wall face, that makes no difference because there is nothing to reveal. Now there is these 3 little buttons down the bottom here, which we'll also see once we get in there. That dictates, so at the moment if I click, it's going to draw a window on either side of it. So I'm defining the center of the window. But you've also got either the left-hand side or the right-hand side. So if you're trying to get a window that lines up perfectly to the inside wall, yes, it went right up and touched it, you'd want to change it so that you had that tool rather than doing it in the center and then trying to move it over. Okay, or if it is meant to touch the edge of the door, that's how you control that. Okay, but we're just going to do a centered one and hit OK. And I'm going to, now there's a few different ways we can do this. At the moment, right, I can just go through and draw a window and then I say which way it opens, which doesn't make much sense. It's an empty opening. It's effectively just a hole. So which way does the hole in your wall open up, which makes no sense. But if I did swap this out to another window, yes, then the window would open like that.
Sorry, what is the empty opening?
So if you go to the settings, it's right down there in the bottom left.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it got me as well because I've shifted it. It used to be up here. And so, anyway, empty opening. All right. However, I'm just going to go undo and bring your attention again to the control palette. Up here it says half. So at the moment, what happens when you go over top of a line, it will show you where the halfway point is, no matter what the line is. You can actually see that, so if I wanted to join all these will be the halfway points of those lines. If it was halfway across my cross section, which I can't see because there's a thing in the middle, but anyway. So that's showing the halfway mark. If you click this little icon to the right of where it says half, you'll see we've got divisions, percent, distance. Hey, what's that one? Best division by distance. That one's new. I don't know what that one does, but I'm going to play with that later. I'm going to say divisions. So this is really handy because if you know that, oh, there's a wall and it's got 3 windows divided across it evenly, you can just say, cool, give me, well, by default it goes to 3, that's convenient. And when I go and hover over it, it divides that line up into 3. Now, it's dividing the wall into 3, not giving you 3 lines. So in this case, I actually want to divide it by 4. So I got 3 points across it. So I can go, there's one, there's another one, and there's the last one. Cool. So now I've got 3 windows evenly spaced across that wall. Because I did the center points, it all balances out. And if I go to the 3D view, you will see 3 empty openings spread across that wall. Does that make sense? Okay, now we're going to do something in the 3D window now, and you're going to learn some other cool tricks. Actually, no, go back to the 2D view because I just want to teach you how to do this. So, at the moment, if I want to select all of my walls, right? Okay, it's not too difficult because I've only got one group set. Although my groups are suspended. I don't know why Siri jumped in there, but anyway. If I want to select all of my walls though, what I can do, if I go to the wall tool and go Control A, Command A for me, it will select all walls. Sorry, I should have started with, if you just have nothing selected, it's just on the arrow tool up there, and you go Control A or Command A, it will select everything, right? This works in pretty much any program. Control A is usually select all. If we go to walls, so just make sure you've got nothing selected. Hitting escape multiple times will deselect stuff, get rid of marquees, which we haven't talked about yet, and get you back to just the cursor tool, right? So if you ever like, what the hell's going on? Escape, 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 escape. Okay, that's like your eject button. Get me out of here. Okay, so I'm going to click on the wall tool and go Control A or Command A, and it selects all my walls. Okay. If I wanted to add windows to this, if I just go and select the windows and go Command A, I'll select all walls, and then it's adding all the windows to it as well. So it's quite convenient. Okay, so what I actually want to do is I'm going to go to the 3D view. I'm going to go to the window and go Command A, and it selects all my windows. Oh, I'll show you the marquee tool in a second as well, because that's also quite handy. Alright, and what I'm going to do now is we're going to go to the Edit menu. We've got loads of stuff down here in the Edit menu that are very handy. So we can drag stuff. You'll notice that it has all the keyboard shortcuts there. So like Command D in my case to drag something. Or you just grab it and drag it. It's a bit easier. Although you can drag stuff relative to something else. So for example, I might have like 3 trees, and I want to drag them all, but I want to drag them so that they're on the other side of the building. So if I just drag it, then it's like, well, actually, but I want it to do it relative. So I can go and select them all, and then go and drag it, but I can go drag from here to here, and then they'll move with it. So there is a reason to have the drag tool. We can rotate, mirror, elevate, do all sorts of crazy stuff. What we want, there's also things like your align tools. So for all those trees, you kind of like just go, and you wanted to align them so they're all in a straight line. You can select them all and go align, and it will do all sorts of different types of alignments. You can do vertical alignments. There's distribute, so you can actually get them to distribute evenly across X, Y, or whatever. There's also reshape stuff in there as well. I haven't got time to go through that, but they are very, very handy tools. And you'll see there's a couple of things there that we're used to seeing as well, including the pick up and inject. Going back to the move, what we're going to do is we're going to do a multiply. And there's lots of ways of multiplying this. So there's an increment and spread. So this is dragging stuff out. We can rotate copies. So if we wanted to rotate, so we had like a whole bunch of chairs all in a big circle, we can just like multiply out a whole bunch of chairs and go around in a big circle and say how many we want and let sort of carry on. We're going to do the elevate though. And what we're going to do is there's different ways of defining what this is. So we can define the increment. So we can say from there to there and then spread them over here. I'm going to have to ask you guys to play around with this in your own time because we haven't got time to go through all of them. We're going to jump straight into the spread. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do is say I want the spacing to be, let's say 2,500, okay? And it's going to be a vertical displacement. So because this is elevating it, I'm going to go okay, and I'm going to grab the bottom of my window here, and as I go up, it just keeps creating new sets of windows. Okay, you can go, oh no you can't. Cool. We can do a matrix. Cool, and so bam, I've got a whole bunch of windows, all equally spaced. As I said, this is not how you would normally work in ArchiCAD, but for us this works perfect because we just want to keep it nice and simple. We just want a wall with a whole bunch of holes in it. Effectively, we're not really making a building, we're making little molds. There are reasons to do this though, especially if you've got like facades and things like that. Sometimes it's easier to do the facade and it's just one great big wall rather than like several different walls, especially if it's like on an angle or something like that. So there are reasons to do this, but we're just doing it the cheating way.
Actually, I was meant to do a grasshopper tutorial today from 2 to 3 in here.
Oh really?
Yeah. I just kind of had a brainwave. Shit, I think you're doing that.
Was anybody in here for a grasshopper tutorial?
Probably just no one show up. That's
You got
what
one?
I mean. Ah, so someone did show up for grasshopper.
I just got
Now he's doing ArchiCAD. Well, the new version of ArchiCAD can link up to Grasshopper.
Really?
Yeah, I know, pretty cool. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm quite keen to. Anyway, okay, so we've created our holes, and now again, what we're trying to actually build here is a block. So we had to kind of like brainstorm on this one to try and figure out how we're going to make this work. And so what we're going to do, because we don't want a cheese grater, which is effectively what we've got, we want this to be solid in the inside, so it's got inset holes, right? So we're going to get pretty crazy with some stuff now, because to pull this off, we're not in the realm of building buildings anymore. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to fill this building with, I don't know, let's call it concrete. Okay? And there's a couple of little tricks that we have to do along the way, but you're going to learn some really cool stuff in ArchiCAD. So it's kind of a weird way of learning these cool tricks, but anyway. So what we're going to do is I'm going to fill this entire thing with a slab, and the slab is actually going to go all the way right through the entire building, right above the roof. Now, actually, there is a cunning trick to figuring out what the Z height is of something. I need the gravity. Sorry, I've just got to find a memory from a long time ago. Where is the? Okay, I'm just gonna assume that if we're going up there, we'll just fudge this. Okay, so we're just gonna grab a slab. Okay, now our slab in this case is a little bit complicated because we're not using a slab in the same way. We're not defining the ground level and going down. We have to go above the building and go down through it. Okay, so our building's 10 meters. So I'm going to throw 12 meters in there. I think that should probably work. So I'm going to set the top height. Where are we? I'm just going to go into the settings because I think my screen's a bit small when it's going to the projector. So this is going to, it's already got numbers in it that I put in there. So I'm going to put this to 12 meters, right? Oh, sorry, I'm in the roof tool. Oh, sorry, I've got the roof selected, that's why. Yeah, that's a gotcha. Slab tool, that's why I couldn't see it before. Now the slab has got some other thing. Now, again, very intelligent objects, so they've got all sorts of presets. The default presets are kind of frustrating because if you dig yourself in there somewhere it's got a setting for a concrete slab or something like that. That's got like a different types of sections. So you might have the carpet and then the glue and then what carpet underlay, concrete, and then there might be hard fill or something underneath that. Who knows? So you can define all those. So you just go and draw one square and your drawing is incredibly detailed with hatching and all the rest of it. We don't want that, and so we need to actually change this from this structure. Now we can change it here, but I'm going to go into the settings just because remember we've got all of the settings in here. So that's what that top right one is. That's a composite structure. So it's got lots of different layers and bits and pieces running through it. We just want to change it to the simple one on the left. And that means, you'll notice, see the thickness here? It's grayed out when it's on the composite one because it's not defined there. There's a whole thing for doing our composites. And this makes a lot of sense when you get into it. Because if someone says, actually, your floors shouldn't be 100, they should be 120, you don't want to go through your entire drawing, selecting floors and change. You just go to the composites and go, right, it's 120 then. And your entire drawing changes. Okay, but in our case, we want to do this custom. So we're going to make this slab go 12 meters thick, which is 12,000 millimeters. You can change the units, but I'm just sticking with the defaults. And the next thing is, though, that's how thick the slab is, but at the moment it's at 0, so it's going to go down 12 meters, so we want to lift it up 12 meters. Oops, 0. Cool. Okay, so basically what I'm doing is saying go at 12 and then go down 12. And if we go OK and we draw, now I want to draw inside this wall. Do I want to go inside it? No, I want to, I'm going to go inside the wall because I don't want to go to the outside of the wall because otherwise I'll fill the windows as well, right? The empty openings. So I'm going to hold down the mouse. Don't be afraid to zoom in. Okay, and I'm going to use the magic wand on the inside of this, and if I go to the 3D now, damn. Oh, it's completely off. So I'm just going to select that and go, right, actually that should be. Actually, there are some things you can do in 3D here, so I can actually like grab this, and there's somewhere, this one here will change that top elevation. Okay, so I can actually snap to the top of my roof, and so then it goes exactly to the top of the roof, which is kind of convenient. I don't have to use Pythagoras. Somewhere there's a gravity tool, but I can't remember where it is. All right. Okay, so what I've essentially got now is a great big block, and now you can see what we're trying to achieve here. See how the windows go in, and then they're filled. But obviously, I've also gone across the top of my roof, so we need to do a Boolean operation. Do you guys know what Boolean operations? Or solid element operations, it's called in here. We're going to subtract the top of this block off and fit it inside the roof. What? Okay, I'm going to hit escape a few times. So what I need to do, you don't actually have to select anything now, but you can if you want. But we're going to go to Design Solid Element Operations. Now, solid element operations are really friggin' cool. So this is like if you had like you might have like some sort of weird curvy roof, and you want to have a wall that like fits inside the weird curvy roof. So this is what we can do, is we can slice the top of that roof off to match the weird curvy roof. And there's all sorts of different ways you can do this. So, and in our case, we want to get the slab to fit underneath the roof, so it fills the entire roof cavity, because we don't want a model here with cavities inside it. It's not going to work for us. So we've got two things that we need to do. We need to define what is doing the slicing and what the target is. So our target is our slab. That's the thing that's going to have the operation done to it. Okay, so that's my target. So I just select it. I can select lots of things, but in this case I just want the slab. So I go that, and then I'm going to hit get target. Okay, and you see target equals, target is 1. There's one target. You can define this like, oh shit, I selected the wrong thing. Just select the other thing and hit that get target again, and it will update. Now, the other thing I want is the roof, but I can't see the roof because it's underneath my slab. But I've only got one roof, so it's relatively easy, because if I just go to the roof tool and go Command A or Control A, I will select the roof. Okay, and if I go get operator, cool, that's doing the operator, and it says I've got one element. That's good. Okay. You might find if you've got lots of other things, oh, I've got to show you the marquee tool still. If you had lots of other things in your drawing, there's a few different ways of doing that, and I'll show you how to do that in a sec. Remind me if I forget to show you the marquee tool. All right, and what we're going to do, now we could do a subtraction, but that's not really going to do it, because that would just make its weird, thin, hollow roof shape inside my slab. It's not what I want. What I want is a subtraction with upwards extrusion. I think I've got that right. So basically what it's going to do is it's going to subtract that roof, and anything that's above it's going to get destroyed. Okay. The other option there is subtraction with downwards extrusion. So that means that I could put a great big slab on top of my roof, so the inside would have a roof shape, but on top it would have a slab. Okay, so that'd be quite good for like a chimney. Okay, so you might have just put a chimney on as just a big slab, and you just want to subtract the roof off it and anything that's underneath the roof because you don't want this big block coming through this thing. Or maybe it's just a faux chimney. That's how you'd achieve it. We could do the intersection. That's not going to make much sense. But if you had two spheres, you'd end up with a weird sort of curve in the middle. And we can do an addition, which will turn those two objects into one object, which is kind of handy if you're trying to apply the same texture or something like that. Okay, but we're going to do a subtraction with upwards extrusion. The surface materials, it's going to have its own surface materials. Again, we don't care about this, but it's quite handy if you actually want them to keep their own materials. So if we had the two circles, they'd end up like red and white. One side would be red, the other side would be white. Otherwise, it inherits it from the operator. So in that case, all of it would be the same color. But we don't care. We're just going to go execute, and bam! Now you can actually see the outline of my slab because it still exists. And they're really cool with ArchiCAD solid element operations. They're always active. So if I change the height of this roof, or if I move the roof, you watch what happens. If I go and move this roof to the left, I just gotta, not you. Ugh, be a pain in the butt. Roof, select all. If I go and move this, you watch what happens. Because it's not covering it anymore, that operation's not happening anymore, and so it comes and pops out. Okay, so they're always active. So if you go and change one, the other one will change. Whereas most programs, it doesn't work like that. Once you've done it, it's destructive. You've lost the rest of that slab. It's never coming back again. Okay. So if I go and change the angle on my roof, I'm not going to end up with a bit of concrete sticking out. It's going to move down with it. Very, very cool. Well, it's going to come back to haunt us in a second. Okay, so we've effectively now made our model, and she's all ready to go. So if we're going to 3D print this, we can go straight out to STL. We can actually scale it when we go to STL. And you can go down to level 4 and the DARH and go, here's my STL, it's at 1 to 100. They go and open up, and hey, cool, look at that. And they can go and print it. And it'll all just be one nice little solid block with the windows. Phew! Okay. Now, if we wanted to go into, the STL is really easy because you can scale it. In fact, let's just do that. Okay, so I'm just going to show you. File, save as. We've got a whole bunch of stuff in here. So we've got all sorts of ArchiCAD projects and all that sort of carry in there, of course, that we can save. But there's also, you can go straight out to Rhino. The Rhino will come in there as 1-to-1. So if your building in our case is 10 meters high, it'll come into Rhino as 10 meters high. And you'd have to scale it down in Rhino before you went to 3D print. Because otherwise it's, or you could try and do it at the print, but sometimes that can get a bit confusing depending on what scales you're going to. So what I quite often do, when I get to this sort of stage in a project where I'm going into other software, I quite often just export loads of different things because I don't really feel like going back into the software and doing it again later because I should have tried some other format. So some really handy ones. Wavefront is OBJ. It's quite an old format, but is pretty much used by anything and everything. Okay, so it's quite a good one. It's a little bit ugly in that you end up with a folder with textures and materials and all that sort of stuff, and if they become separated, you lose all the materials. Collider is frigging awesome. It's relatively new compared to the rest of these. Everything's all bundled into one little unit, but not all software supports it for some reason, which is really annoying because it's a really cool format. Rhino is obviously the Rhino one. There's even Google Earth files, so you can actually import models. So if you wanted to import your model into Google Earth, there is actually tools inside of ArchiCAD to actually georeference your site so that's in the right place. So you can go and import into Google Earth. It should appear in the correct place in the world as well, which is pretty friggin' cool. SketchUp, you don't want to use that though. VRML is the oldest 3D format that I know of. It sounds like it's a new one, but it's not at all. It's often called Vermal, and I have had to use it sometimes with getting obscure stuff into obscure programs. So there is actually still a reason for it to exist. Twin motion. That's another thing. Twin motion's just new and it's really friggin' cool. And I didn't realize that you could go straight to twin motion from ArchiCAD, so that's kind of exciting as well. That's awesome. That's another class. But yeah, so STL or stereolithography file is the number one file that we use for doing 3D printing. Okay? So, and that file format, so if you want to go to 3D print, is quite convenient because I noticed before that when you go and export it from here, I'm going to call it demo one, I'm going to put that into my desktop. You'll notice that here it actually has the scale, so you don't have to rescale this and export it. Cool, so I can say 1 to 100. What scale are you using? 1 to 500.
500,
Yeah, so I can go 1 to 500. Cool, and go and save that, and it's saved out as 1 to 500. Okay. There is a little issue with if we wanted to scale this down and export it, it becomes a little bit of a problem because these are all of these elements, like the windows and all that, all have their own measurements and the thicknesses and all that sort of stuff. So you go and shrink it all down, but the windows stay the same size. There is a little workaround. It's a destructive workaround. So when I say destructive, it means that you can't go back and change where the window was because all that information's been lost. So what we're going to do, and I'm going to show you actually also some cool stuff along the way. Oh, by the way, if you kind of ended up zooming in, these little tiny little controls down here are really handy. That one will fit to the view, and that goes through your recent history of zoom. So if you zoom in, and then you want to go back to where you were just looking, you can do that and it goes back through a history. So if I just go and click on that, you'll actually see it like pops out a bit further. Yeah. So if I go and zoom in on an area, cool, and then I want to zoom in a bit further, oopsies. Cool, I can go back to the previous zoom that I had, and then I can go back to the view before that. You can save all these views, but that's another class. And that one just fits everything into view. Okay, you don't actually need these out here either. ArchiCAD's always had them, and it kind of assumes that you're building a building that fits perfectly into this little box. I suppose if you're doing like Keith Hay homes or something, you're probably right. All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to duplicate this building, right? I can do this either in the 2D view or the 3D view. And it's actually a really easy way to do it. If I select everything and I go to drag it, I'll move it, right? But if you touch the Alt key, or the Option key in my case, you'll see a little plus appears next to my cursor. Remember, everything's all just like single clicks. Okay? See that little plus? So that means it's going to drag a copy. Cool, so now I've got 2 copies. I'm just going to undo that, and I'll do it in the 3D view so you can kind of see how it works in the 3D view. So again, I'm just going to go Select All, or Control A, go to Move It. Oh, sorry, I need to go into the Cursor tool. All right. Turn off the View tool, okay. And I'm going to go to the Move, so it moves. Okay, if I hit the Option key, I get a little plus, and I can drag a copy. So this is really handy if you want 2 chairs. Rather than going and sucking out the settings of it and then creating, you can just like select it, go to drag it, touch the Option key, you drag a copy.
I think for us it's Control.
Oh, sorry, Control, yes. Oh, is it? Oh, okay. It's not the Alt key? Whatever makes that little plus appear. You should just have to hit it once. So if you just go tap it, you should get like a little plus appear next to it. Is that working for everyone? Yes? No? So if you go and grab that corner, right?
Okay, just click it.
Yeah. Select all. And go to move. Yeah, so you're moving it now.
Yeah.
Cool, and if you touch, so that's in the control key, yeah. Okay, so now I've got a copy of it. I only want to deal with one of these. I don't want 2 models in my scene right now. I just want to see one of them. So this is where I'm going to show you the marquee tool. So remember before, right? I showed you how we could do like that select all thing. There's actually a little marquee over here. If I use the marquee and I go and do a selection around this, you'll see your classic looking sort of Photoshop type marquee, right? Now if I go select all, it selects everything inside of the marquee. Okay? So this can be really handy because what we can do is if I wanted to get like just the windows, like these two windows. I mean, this is a bit ridiculous, but anyway. Remember, escape will get rid of anything, including the marquee. I can draw a little box around those two windows, go to the windows, go Command A or Control A, and it'll select all of the windows inside of the marquee. There's different ways of drawing marquees as well. You can somehow... Oh, that's a bit weird. I thought you could do a polygonal marquee as well. Maybe we've got nothing selected. Oh yeah, here we go. So if you select it, there's somewhere around here is a polygonal marquee or a marquee on an angle. Okay, so you might go, okay, I need all of these windows in here, you know, to draw this crazy little marquee, go to the window tool, go Control A, and it'll select all of the windows in that marquee, rather than go select. Oh shit, I just deselected. Okay. You can actually save selections as well and things like that, but again, we haven't got time. All right. So I'm going to go and draw a little marquee, and I'm going to show you another really cool thing we can do. Remember before I did F2 was 2D, F3 was the 3D, F4 takes just what you have selected into the 3D view. Okay, so if I wanted to see just the roof, I can select the roof and go F4, and I see just the roof. Okay, so this is really handy when you, especially when you've got a massive big site, okay, and you want to see just the chair that you've put in there. You can select that chair, hit F4, and it goes in there. If you go function F5, oh, shit, mine doesn't work like that because I've got some sort of other keyboard shortcut. If you go F5, it should reset the 3D view and you should end up with everything in there, I believe. Can you try that if you just press F5 now? Oh, really? Oh, maybe I've got it wrong. Maybe it's F6. Oh, okay, I'm wrong. Otherwise, just select it. Oh, that's right, sorry. If you have nothing selected and now you go F4 again, everything else just reappears again. Okay? So you select something, hit F4, takes just that element into the 3D view. You can even do this in the 3D view. So if I go and select this wall, oh, whatever, I can't select the wall, but anyway. If I go and select just the roof, and I press F4, I see, I just managed to select the slab, that's alright. That's cool, I wanted to see the slab anyway. And then I've hit F4 again, it resets it and goes back to how it was. Who left their phone on? Alright. Okay, so what I want to do though is I want to see just this building, so I've got that there, I go F4 and it selects and shows me everything that is in the marquee. Come on, don't be like that. Oh, that's because I got just the roof. Cool. Oh, you want to see something cool? If you have this marquee, if it goes through half of your building, which is going to be a bit weird in our case because it's full of concrete, but if that marquee actually slices your building up, you'll do a 3D marquee. A 3D cross section. So if I go like that and then go F4, ching. We've gone and created ourselves a 3D cross section. Use the right. There you go. Pretty cool, eh? So if that was like a building, you'd actually see it. You can change somewhere in there. There's a setting for what color that is. So you can change it to red, which is the classic, cross section, 3D cross section color. And you'll see all the chairs and furniture and stuff like that in the house. All right. There's loads of different ways of doing that, though, to be honest. But anyway. So we're gonna go and draw that marquee just around that one building. Oops. Go F4. And now what I'm going to do is pretty crazy. We're going to select everything and we're going to go design, convert selection to morphs. Now what a morph is, and it's going to warn me, this is why I duplicated it, because as a destructive process. It's going to convert this into basically a polygon model. So it is no longer slabs and walls and roofs and all the rest of it. It is in fact a single object which I can now scale. So if I go edit, reshape, resize, I can say, I can do this graphically, but I'm going to do it, uncheck that. I can say 1 to, what do we say, 500. Go OK. I just needed to find a point because it needs to like scale this to a point. So I'm going to say the bottom left corner over here. And pop, whoops, what the hell happened there? I think I didn't have the other side of the building selectors when I did my converted it to morphs. But anyway, if I go and hopefully somehow if I go and zoom all the way down there, I will see a tiny little model of a little building. Isn't that cute? There it is. But yeah, when I did the morph, I mustn't have had the walls on the other side of the building selected. So that's why select all is a very good option. Okay, and this is actually, we can do all sorts of stuff with it. So if I go and export this to Rhino, it'll already be scaled down and everything. There are loads of tools in there. You can distort it and push it and pull it and do all sorts of weird things. You can do unions. Yeah, to be honest, I haven't played a hell lot with morphs and stuff like that, mostly because I would normally export this into a 3D program like Rhino or something and start manipulating it there rather than inside of ArchiCAD. But it can be quite convenient. And in fact, yeah. In fact, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, that's right, yeah, because I was playing around with this before and we created like a mold. But anyway, that is more than enough, and I've probably stretched your brains a little bit. Let's go back into here. Somewhere in there is a tiny little model, but I don't care. I'm just going to delete them. Oops. All right. Escape. Fit to view. Okay, we've actually got a little bit of time left, which is quite cool. Have you guys got any questions? Cool. The big thing is, what I would highly recommend, that especially over the weekend while it's still fresh, is just play. You can't break it. Rather than trying to do your assignment and learning at the same time, just get in there and just try and see what you can draw. It's by far the best way to learn the software. I'm going to stop the recording there. And